He woke before the sun every day, and that habit had shaped his life for many years. The sky was still dark, and the land felt calm and honest. He liked this quiet time because it never asked him questions. The open fields stretched wide and empty, and the cattle moved slowly, as if they understood his need for silence. He worked with his hands and trusted routine more than people. Every morning followed the same path, and that gave him comfort. He lived far from the busy world on land that had been in his family for a long time. The house was small and simple, with worn wood and plain furniture, nothing fancy, nothing extra. He believed a man only needed what he could use with his hands. The land gave him food, work, and purpose, and he never asked for more. People in nearby towns knew him as the quiet cowboy who kept to himself. He came in only when supplies ran low, spoke when needed, and left before anyone could ask personal questions. Some thought he was proud, others thought he was broken. The truth was simpler. He did not want to open doors. He had spent years closing long ago. He had learned that love could change everything. And not always in good ways. He had seen promises fade and strong bonds break. He had watched hope turn into regret. Those memories stayed with him, even when he tried to bury them under work and distance. The land helped him forget for a while, but not completely. His days were filled with honest labor, fixing fences, checking water, guiding cattle, and watching the sky for signs of weather. He liked jobs that had clear results. A fence was either standing or broken. A task was either done or not. Feelings were not like that. They were messy and unclear, and often painful. At night he sat alone with simple meals and quiet thoughts. The wind moved outside, and sometimes the sound felt like a voice from the past. He did not chase it away, but he did not welcome it. Either he believed that being alone was safer than being hurt again. Years passed like this, and he grew used to the silence. It became part of him, like the dust on his boots or the lines on his hands. He told himself he was content, and most days that felt true. He did not miss what he had chosen to leave behind. At least that was what he believed. There were moments, though small ones, when something stirred inside him, a laugh heard from a distance, a song drifting from a radio in town, a memory of warmth that came without warning. He pushed those moments aside and returned to his work. He had built his life carefully and did not want cracks to form. The land respected his effort and rewarded him in simple ways. The sunrise painted the sky in soft colors. The cattle stayed healthy. The seasons moved in their steady pattern. These were things he could trust. They did not promise more than they could give. He remembered a time when he had been different. Back when he believed people could stay and feelings could last. That version of him felt like someone else now, a stranger from another life. He did not hate that memory, but he did not invite it back. Townsfolk sometimes wondered why a man so strong chose to live so closed. They did not see the nights when he stared at the ceiling, or the mornings when memories followed him into the fields. He carried those things quietly without complaint. He believed that love demanded too much. It asked for trust and risk and hope. All things he had learned to avoid. He had survived without them, and that felt like proof enough. One ordinary morning, nothing seemed different. The sun rose as usual, and the land breathed slowly around him. He saddled his horse and rode out to check the far fence line. His thoughts stayed quiet, and his heart felt steady. Just another day, just another task. He did not know that this calm routine was nearing its end. He could not see that the walls he had built were about to be tested. He believed his life would continue the same way until the end, steady and untouched. At that moment, he was simply a man riding across open land, unaware that even the strongest habits can change, and that sometimes change begins with something small and unexpected. The next few days moved forward like usual, but something small had shifted inside him. He could not explain it, and he did not try to. His work stayed the same, yet his thoughts did not stay as quiet as before. While riding across the land, he caught himself slowing down, as if waiting for something he could not name. He told himself it was nothing, just tiredness or the changing seasons. Still, the feeling stayed with him like a soft echo. He pushed cattle through the open field and checked the water lines. Yet his mind wandered back to moments that had no clear shape. Short trip to town became the start of something he did not expect. He went only to restock supplies, like he always did. He tied his horse outside and walked through the familiar street, keeping his eyes forward. He planned to leave quickly without talk. Then it happened. Simple moment, nothing dramatic, nothing loud. Someone nearby smiled at him, not out of habit but with warmth. It was brief and quiet, yet it caught him off guard. He nodded and kept walking, but his chest felt tight in a way he had not felt in years. Tried to ignore it as he loaded supplies. The smile stayed with him, though not the face, not the details, just the feeling. It followed him back to the ranch and settled into the quiet spaces he usually kept empty that night. He sat longer than usual. Staring into the dark, the land was calm, but his thoughts were restless. He wondered why such a small moment had stayed with him. He had seen many people over the years, and none of them had left a mark like this. The next morning he woke before sunrise. As always, he expected the feeling to fade with work, but it did not. As he moved through his routine, the memory returned without warning. He shook his head and focused on the task in front of him. He reminded himself why he kept distance. People came, and when feelings grew and faded, he had chosen a different path, one that did not depend on anyone else. That choice had kept him steady for a long time. Still, he found himself riding toward town again sooner than needed. He told himself it was for supplies or repairs. He did not question it further. He did not want to admit the truth even to himself. When he reached town, he moved slower this time. He noticed sounds and small details he usually ignored. He did not see the smile again and felt both relief and disappointment. The feeling surprised him more than anything on the ride back. He felt unsettled. He was not angry and not afraid, just unsure. The land that once felt like a shield now felt quiet in a different way, as if waiting days passed and chance brought them close again. Another brief meeting, another small smile, another moment that asked nothing but left something behind. They never spoke more than a few simple words, yet each meeting felt heavy with meaning. He began to notice changes in himself. He slept less deeply. He thought more than he wanted to. He questioned rules he had lived by for years. He did not like this feeling, yet he could not deny. He'd wondered when he had stopped believing that life could surprise him. The thoughts stayed with him as he worked under the open sky. He realized that his walls had kept pain out, but they had also kept everything else away. Night, he remembered who he had been before the land became his only companion. He remembered hope and trust and how alive those feelings once felt. The memory did not hurt as much as he expected. Instead, it felt warm. He was not ready to face these thoughts fully. He was not ready to change, yet something had already started moving inside him. He could feel it in the quiet moments, in the long rides. He did not know where this path would lead. All he knew was that the calm distance he depended on no longer felt complete. And for the first time in many years, that thought did not scare him. The following weeks moved with the slow rhythm of the land, yet the cowboy felt something new stirring inside him. Each day brought work and routine as usual, but his mind and heart did not stay quiet. He found himself thinking about small moments that had seemed meaningless before. Every trip to town became a test of self-control. He wanted to see the person again, yet he told himself he must not care. He could not understand why a simple smile had such power over him. He had spent years avoiding feelings, and now they seemed to sneak into every thought. When he rode across the fields, he noticed small details with more attention. The way the sunlight fell on the grass, the wind moving through the trees, the sounds of animals around him, all of it seemed sharper, as if the world had shifted slightly. Tried to work harder to push the feelings away, but the more he moved and labored, the more they returned. It was not anger or sadness, just a quiet insistence that he could not ignore. He felt unsettled yet alive in a way that had been absent for many years. Some days he lingered near town longer than he needed. Sometimes he spoke to a few people, though carefully and with distance, yet each brief encounter reminded him of the smile and the warmth that followed it. The memory did not fade even after he returned to the ranch. At night, he could not sleep as he once did. His mind replayed the moments again and again. He remembered his life of distance and solitude and realized how much he had avoided feelings for protection, yet now protection felt less important than the curiosity stirring within him. He began to notice that he was not alone in his thoughts. He started to hope for small encounters without admitting it. He began to imagine the possibility of connection, though he did not let himself act on it fully. He had lived so long avoiding the risk that the risk itself felt strange and dangerous even. The animals seemed to sense the change. He felt more attuned to their movements and sounds. They provided comfort, yet reminded him of the quiet he had built. Around himself, he realized that he had been safe in solitude, but also lonely in a way he had ignored. He remembered faces from the past, and thought of times when he had let himself feel freely before loss had taught him caution. He remembered laughter and warmth and the feeling of trust. He wondered if he had been too careful for too long. Work became a balance between distraction and reflection. He mended fences, checked water, and guided the cattle, while thoughts of the smile and its meaning followed him. He told himself that it was nothing more than curiosity, yet he could not deny the Pulich ride to town became a journey of anticipation and restraint. He wanted to see the person, and yet he feared what it might mean. He feared that opening. Two feelings could undo the careful life he had built. He feared disappointment and change, and yet the fear was mixed with hope. He realized that avoiding love had kept pain out, but it had also kept moments like this away. He realized that he had lived so long with walls that he did not know if he could lower them now, yet a small voice inside told him that he wanted to try, even if it was frightening. At night, he sat alone thinking of what might come. He did not make plans or promises. He simply allowed himself to notice the change inside. He allowed himself to feel without judgment, and that was new and strange, yet quietly beautiful. The land around him remained steady and familiar, yet he felt differently in it. The fields and skies and quiet sounds seemed to hold possibility rather than only routine. Each day he discovered a small part of himself that had been dormant for many years. He could not say when the shift had begun, or when it might fully change him. All he knew was that the quiet life he had counted on no longer felt complete, and that the simple smile had started to undo the distance he had spent years building. The cowboy could feel the change growing inside him. It was no longer a quiet thought or fleeting curiosity. It had taken shape as a restless energy that moved with him. Even when he worked, the land was steady and predictable, yet he felt different within. Thought of the past more often than he wanted. Memories of loss and disappointment returned like old friends. He remembered trusting too easily and losing what mattered. He remembered hope fading and promises breaking. Those memories had taught him caution and shaped his walls. Now he saw those walls differently. He realized that avoiding feelings had kept him safe, yet it had also kept him from experiencing moments that could be gentle and strong. He wondered if it was possible to open himself slowly without losing the sense of safety he had built. Every ride to town became a reflection. He moved with care, yet noticed the world around him with a new clarity. The people, the streets, the small sounds he had ignored before now drew his attention in subtle ways. He saw kindness in gestures and warmth in eyes that he had been blind to in the past. He thought about the smile that had started this shift. It was simple and quiet, yet it had carried something he could not name at first. He could not understand why it mattered so much, yet it followed him through work and rest. The memory was persistent, yet comforting rather than painful. He began to accept that his feelings were not weaknesses. They were signals of life and change that he had ignored for too long. He remembered how long he had lived without noticing small joys and how much he had missed by keeping distance. He felt a quiet regret, yet also a cautious hope. One evening he stayed by the fence line longer than usual. He watched the sky as colors shifted and moved slowly. He remembered what it felt like to trust and to allow oneself to hope. He did not rush to any conclusion, but he allowed himself to notice the warmth returning to his heart. He thought about how he could move forward cautiously. He did not need to change everything at once. He did not need to make promises or leap into the unknown. He only needed to notice what was real and possible and allow himself to feel it fully. He began to see the land differently too. It had always been his companion and teacher, yet now it seemed to hold more than work and routine. It seemed to carry moments of beauty and possibility that he had missed. He walked through the fields and felt the quiet strength of the world around him, and within him he understood that facing the past did not mean reliving pain. It meant seeing it and learning from it without letting it control him. He saw how memories shaped his decisions and walls, and he allowed himself to question them gently. He saw that safety and life could coexist if he moved carefully and intentionally. His nights became times of quiet reflection. He sat with the memories and with the feelings he had kept hidden. He let the warmth of possibility grow slowly. Without forcing it, he began to trust that he could feel and still be strong. The smile and the brief encounters continued to appear in his thoughts. They were small and fleeting, yet they reminded him that connection was possible. He did not need grand gestures or sweeping changes, just awareness and the willingness to feel and notice. As days passed, he moved with a balance between work and thought. He mended fences and guided cattle, and yet he allowed himself moments of pause. He watched the sky and listened to the wind and the small sounds that told him the world was alive and welcoming. He realized that opening himself slowly could be enough. He did not need to abandon his careful life. He only needed to allow cracks where light could enter. He saw that love and connection were not always dramatic or dangerous. They could be quiet, persistent forces that asked only to be noticed. He thought about the life he wanted moving forward. Not a life without caution, but one with openness and awareness. He imagined small steps and gentle encounters. He imagined trust building slowly and steadily. He imagined himself learning to live with both safety and possibility. By the end of the part, he had accepted that change was not sudden or forced. It was a process that moved through quiet moments and reflection. He felt ready to meet it not with fear, but with careful courage and awareness. He felt ready to let the small warmth in his heart guide him without abandoning the strength he had built over years. The cowboy woke early again, as he always did, but the world felt different. He felt a quiet anticipation that had been absent for years. He moved through his chores with care, yet a new awareness followed him. He noticed details in the land that had gone unseen, and felt a small warmth in his heart. That had been missing. The trips to town continued, yet he no longer moved through them with simple routine. Each encounter with people carried a hint of connection, spoke more gently, and listened with attention. He did not know if it mattered to anyone else, yet it mattered to him, and that was enough. He remembered the smile that had started it all, and he allowed himself to feel the impact without fear. He did not rush or force any feelings. He simply noticed them and let them grow quietly. And naturally, he felt the distance he had carried for years begin to soften at work. He moved with careful thought and energy. He guided cattle, checked fences, and carried water, yet his mind often wandered to small possibilities. He imagined conversations not yet spoken and connections not yet made. He felt a gentle courage rising inside. His evenings became times of reflection. He watched the sun move slowly across the horizon and thought about the past, the present, and the small steps toward change. He saw that he could allow himself to feel without losing strength. He saw that trust could be earned slowly and carefully, and that was enough. He began to notice small moments of kindness around him in ways he had not before. A word from a neighbor, a gesture from someone in town, a glance that lingered. He allowed himself to appreciate them without expecting more. He felt connected yet independent, and that balance brought him peace. He thought of the life he wanted moving forward, not a life without caution, but one with openness. He imagined walking through days noticing and appreciating small moments. He imagined listening and speaking and allowing himself to trust in subtle ways. He imagined love not as danger, but as a quiet possibility. He realized that the land had taught him patience and strength, and now it was teaching him another lesson. The lesson of opening slowly and allowing warmth to enter. He felt the walls he had built for protection begin to shift. They did not fall down, but they became flexible enough for life to move through. Each ride across the fields became an experience of reflection and presence. He noticed the way the wind moved across the grass, the sound of the birds, and the steady rhythm of the cattle. He felt a sense of being alive in every moment, and it was stronger than any work or routine he had known. He remembered past losses and disappointments, yet he did not fear them. He accepted them as parts of his life that shaped him and taught him caution. He realized that caution did not have to block hope. He could be careful and open at the same time. Encounters in town grew more natural. He allowed conversations to extend a little longer. He smiled gently when it felt right. He listened with attention and spoke when he wanted to speak. He did not force relationships or feelings, yet he allowed them to unfold in their own time. He felt a growing sense of connection, not just to people, but to life itself, the land, the animals, the quiet sounds of nature, the rhythm of work, and the movement of seasons all carried a message of balance and patience. He felt part of something larger than himself, and it gave him strength. He thought about the future without fear. He imagined moments of quiet, joy, and gentle connection. He imagined trust building slowly and steadily. He imagined allowing himself to love and be loved in small ways, and that thought brought him peace. He realized that surrendering to change did not mean losing himself. It meant accepting life fully, with all its possibilities and uncertainties. He could maintain his independence, his strength, and his routines while opening to moments that carried warmth and connection. The smile that had started this journey remained in his mind as a symbol not of desire alone, but of possibility and courage. He understood that life moved in quiet ways, and that change often arrived in small moments that asked only to be noticed by. At the end, he felt a quiet joy that had been absent. For years he had learned to allow warmth into his heart without fear. He had learned to notice connection and possibility without rushing. He had learned that love and life could coexist gently, and steadily he rode across the fields with awareness. In patience, he worked with care and reflection. He noticed the world around him and the feelings inside him, and he felt complete in a way he had never known before. The journey had been slow and quiet, yet it had changed him entirely. He was ready for the life that awaited him with openness, courage, and gentle hope. The days passed with quiet rhythm, yet something new had begun for the cowboy. He noticed small details more than ever before: the movement of the wind, the way sunlight fell on the fields, the distant calls of animals. Everything seemed sharper, alive, and meaningful. He worked as he always had, yet his mind lingered on the subtle changes in life around him. He began to explore the land with a sense of curiosity that had been absent. For years he walked slowly, noticing flowers and rocks that had gone unseen. He watched the skies and the movement of clouds. He listened to the sounds of the land in ways he had never done before. Each moment felt full, as if it carried a secret. He had finally learned to notice trips to town continued, yet they no longer carried the old tension. He spoke gently with people he met. He asked questions he once ignored. He smiled when it felt natural, and he listened fully. He no longer feared connection, but approached it with caution and respect. He realized that small gestures and brief words carried more meaning than he had understood it. At night he sat by the fire, reflecting on the changes within him. He thought of the life he had built and the walls he had kept in place. He remembered the past losses and disappointments, yet he did not feel burdened. He accepted that those moments had shaped him, allowed him to be careful. But now he allowed himself to move gently toward openness. He began to feel a quiet excitement for the future, not loud or urgent, but steady and reassuring. He imagined conversations not yet spoken and moments not yet lived. He thought about trust and kindness, and saw that they could grow slowly, without threat. He let himself hope in small ways without pushing or forcing. The land itself seemed to respond to the change. He felt harmony in the rhythm of work and rest. He noticed the way the river moved and the way animals carried themselves. He felt present in the world and part of something larger. He began to understand that life offered moments of beauty if one paid attention. He reflected on the encounters in town that had stirred him. He no longer dismissed them as meaningless. He allowed himself to see the potential in simple smiles, brief words, and shared experiences. He felt gratitude for the small ways people connected and realized that life offered gentle opportunities for trust work. Continued as always, yet each task now carried reflection. In attention, he mended fences with care. He guided the cattle with patience. He carried water with thoughtfulness. Every action was connected to awareness and presence. The land and his labor became partners in the growth he felt inside. He thought of the future without fear or doubt. He imagined living with openness and strength. At the same time, he imagined moments of laughter, small joys shared, and connections built slowly. He did not rush toward anything. He only allowed the possibility of growth to guide him. Evenings became times of quiet observation. He watched sunsets, lingered by the fire, and let his mind wander over the possibilities of life. He noticed the beauty in the stars, the calm in the night, and the rhythm of the land. He allowed himself to feel gratitude for the quiet yet powerful changes within the smile that had begun this journey remained a gentle reminder of possibility. It was not a single event, but a symbol of awareness, courage, and openness he carried. As he worked and moved and lived each day, it reminded him that small moments could hold great meaning if one paid attention. He understood that surrendering to life did not mean losing control. It meant noticing what was real, feeling it fully, and allowing growth to happen naturally. He saw that strength and openness could coexist, and that life offered gentle paths for both the land and the people he interacted with became sources of quiet joy and connection. He felt alive in ways he had not in years. He realized that his past solitude had protected him, but now awareness and care allowed him to live fully without fear. Every ride across the fields became a lesson in presence. Every task and encounter carried meaning. He worked with attention and reflection. He noticed the world and allowed himself to feel connected. He experienced life fully in a way that was quiet, steady, and deeply satisfying. By the end, he felt a sense of completeness. He had learned to allow small moments to shape him. He had learned that connection and solitude could exist together. He had learned that the land, work, and people could teach patience, presence, and openness. He looked toward the future with gentle hope and quiet courage, ready for whatever life brought next. The cowboy woke before the sun, as he always had, yet the world felt different now. He moved through the morning air, noticing the quiet sounds of the land. The wind brushed over the fields. The grass swayed and the cattle moved slowly. As if sensing the calm energy that had grown inside him, he took a deep breath and felt presence in every step he made. The days were long, yet each moment carried attention and care. He guided the cattle with patience. He checked fences carefully. He carried water and tools methodically, yet his mind wandered to small possibilities and the quiet warmth growing within. He noticed small details that had gone unseen for years: a bird landing on a fence, a pattern in the clouds, the shifting sunlight. On the land, these moments felt full and alive. He made his trips to town with a different heart. He walked through the familiar streets, but his attention had shifted. He noticed the kindness of people, the small gestures of respect and warmth. He spoke with a gentle voice and listened to what others had to say. He smiled in a natural way without hesitation, and felt connection without expecting more. He understood that small interactions carried meaning, and he allowed himself to appreciate them. At night, he sat alone with quiet reflection. He thought of the past, the losses, and disappointments he had carried. He remembered trust that had been broken and hope that had faded. Yet he did not feel sorrow as he once did. He accepted that those moments had shaped him and allowed him to move carefully through life. Now, he felt the freedom to notice connection and beauty without fear. Began to explore the land with a sense of curiosity that had been absent. He walked slowly along the river, noticing rocks, flowers, and the movement of water. He watched animals and listened to the subtle sounds of the fields. He moved through the spaces, as if seeing them for the first time. Each step carried awareness, and each breath carried gratitude. Work continued as usual, yet each task carried reflection and presence. He mended fences with care. He guided the cattle with patience. He tended to the water lines thoughtfully. Every movement was part of a larger awareness, and he felt the land respond to his attention. The rhythm of labor and quiet moments of observation became intertwined, and he felt alive. He thought about the life he wanted for the future. He imagined moments of trust and connection building slowly and steadily. He imagined gentle laughter, small joys shared, and moments of warmth that did not threaten the careful life he had built. He allowed himself to hope without pressure and to feel without fear. Smile that had started this journey remained in his thoughts as a symbol of possibility and courage. It reminded him that life offered gentle invitations to connection, and that one could respond carefully without losing strength. He carried the memory as he worked and moved and allowed it to guide his awareness. Noticed subtle changes in the town. He observed people helping each other, sharing words of encouragement and offering small kindnesses. Realized that connection was everywhere. If he only noticed, he moved through these spaces with gentle attention. and allowed himself to appreciate each interaction without expectation, the nights became a time for quiet reflection and presence. He watched the sky, the stars, and the shifting shadows on the land. He allowed himself to feel connected to the world. And to the life that surrounded him, he reflected on moments of beauty and warmth and allowed gratitude to grow within him. He remembered the lessons of the past about caution and trust. He realized that one could live with awareness and patience. And still open to the small joys of connection, he allowed himself to feel courage in small steps and learn to balance safety with presence. The land became a teacher and companion as he moved with awareness. Each sunrise and sunset brought lessons of rhythm and change. Each breeze and movement of water reminded him of the flow of life. Each task and labor carried reflection and mindfulness.
Nice.
He allowed the land to shape his attention and his presence. He noticed small moments with the animals. Around him, the cattle moved calmly, responding to his guidance and presence. He watched birds and insects and listened to the natural music of the fields. He realized that every living being had its own rhythm and awareness, and he felt a quiet connection. To all of it, trips to town continued, yet they felt like exploration rather than duty. He observed the lives of others, the small gestures of kindness and care. He spoke and listened with intention and noticed the subtle shifts in mood and expression. He allowed himself to feel empathy and curiosity without fear or judgment. Evenings were spent sitting quietly by the fire, reflecting on the day and planning for tomorrow. He thought about the balance between work and observation, between solitude and connection. He understood that life was built from small moments, and that noticing them fully carried meaning. He allowed himself to feel joy in these simple recognitions. He explored new areas of the land, walking trails he had never followed. Noticing new perspectives and patterns, he observed the movement of clouds, the shapes of rocks, and the growth of plants. He felt present and alive and understood that awareness was as important as work. He thought often about trust and how it could be built slowly. He imagined moments of sharing stories of laughter and moments of silence where connection was felt without words. He realized that small steps could lead to meaningful bonds, and he allowed himself to practice patience and presence. Smile that had changed his life continued to represent possibility. He remembered the first moment and how unexpected it had felt. He reflected on how small gestures and moments carried more power than grand actions. He carried the memory with respect and awareness. Each day, he moved with care and mindfulness, noticing patterns and rhythms around him. He guided cattle, mended fences, tended water, and observed the land. He noticed the movement of the wind, the changing light, and the behavior of animals. He felt a connection to the land that was deeper than before. He reflected on the seasons and the changes they brought. He observed growth and decay and the constant rhythm of life. He realized that change was natural and could be embraced gently. He allowed himself to move with the rhythms of life without fear or resistance. Trips to town became more comfortable. He spoke freely and listened with attention. He noticed the subtleties of expression, the small gestures of care and warmth. He allowed himself to appreciate connection and conversation without pressure. He felt a sense of belonging in small ways that grew over time. He spent long hours in reflection by the river, watching water move over stones, feeling the rhythm of life. He listened to the sounds of nature and allowed his mind to quiet yet remain aware. He felt gratitude for the present and hope for the future. He understood that life was built from many small moments. The land continued to teach him lessons of patience, presence, and balance. He observed growth, decay, and the flow of energy around him. He realized that awareness allowed one to notice beauty and opportunity. Even in ordinary moments, he moved with care and reflection. In all that he did, he reflected on his past decisions and the caution he had practiced. He understood that it had kept him safe, yet it had also limited experiences. He allowed himself to consider new possibilities for trust and connection without fear. He practiced small steps of opening. An observation of new beings were spent in quiet meditation of sorts, watching the fire, the stars, and the movement of the wind. He felt connected to the world around him and aware of the life within him. He allowed himself to feel warmth, curiosity, and hope. He reflected on the lessons of change, patience, and presence, and let them settle within him. He walked the fields, observing subtle movements and patterns. He listened to sounds of animals, wind, and distant voices. He observed details of the land. And whether he felt presence and awareness in every moment, he allowed himself to feel alive and connected. Trips to town became occasions for gentle interaction. He spoke to people with attention. He observed behavior with curiosity. He smiled naturally. He listened fully and allowed moments of connection to occur. He understood that trust and warmth could be built slowly and carefully. Reflected on moments of past loss and disappointment, he accepted them without judgment and allowed them to shape his careful steps. He understood that awareness and patience allowed for growth without risk. He practiced mindfulness in labor, thought, and interaction. He explored new areas of the land. Noticing flora, fauna, and water patterns, he walked trails. Observing textures, sounds, and movement, he allowed himself to feel curiosity and wonder. He felt alive in each observation and carried attention to all he did. Smile and interactions in town continued to remind him of possibility. He allowed himself to feel warmth in memory, and in present encounters, he recognized that connection could be gentle, gradual, and meaningful. He practiced patience and awareness in all engagements. Days passed. With work, reflection, and presence, he guided cattle, tended fences, carried water, and observed the land. He moved with attention and care, noticing wind, light, movement, and sound. He allowed presence, awareness, and mindfulness to guide each action. He thought of the future, imagining moments of small trust, gentle laughter, shared tasks, and quiet connections. He allowed hope to grow without pressure. He felt courage in small steps and awareness in each observation. He understood that life offered opportunities that could be embraced. Slowly, evenings became times for reflection, observation, and quiet presence. He watched stars, sky, fire, and movement. He reflected on growth, decay, rhythm, and change. He allowed feelings of gratitude, hope, and warmth to settle in him. He practiced mindfulness, patience, and presence. He noticed small gestures in town and around the land. He spoke, listened, smiled, and observed. He allowed empathy, curiosity, and connection to flow. Naturally, he felt alive in interactions and grounded in labor, and observation work was carried out with focus, care, and reflection. He mended fences, guided cattle, tended water, and observed surroundings. He noticed detail, pattern, movement, and rhythm. He allowed awareness, presence, and mindfulness to guide all action. He reflected often on the lessons of past solitude, caution, and trust. He allowed memories to inform careful awareness. He practiced small steps of opening connection, observation, and empathy. He allowed life to unfold gently, without forcing change. Trips to town and walks on the land became occasions to practice observation, mindfulness, and connection. He allowed awareness to guide interactions and observations. He noticed subtle changes, patterns, gestures, and sounds. He allowed curiosity, warmth, and connection to grow. The smile that started this journey remained a gentle reminder of possibility. He allowed it to guide awareness, reflection, and patience. He carried it with quiet respect and gentle courage. He allowed small gestures, moments, and encounters to shape growth. Each day became a blend of labor, reflection, observation, and gentle connection. He moved with attention and awareness, noticing detail, pattern, rhythm, and subtle change. He allowed mindfulness, patience, presence, and hope to guide life. He felt alive in ordinary moments. Evenings were spent in quiet reflection, observing fire, stars, and movement. He allowed gratitude, hope, curiosity, and gentle warmth to settle. He thought of trust, connection, and possibility. He allowed awareness and presence to shape thought, feeling, and action. He explored the land, noticing flora, fauna, patterns, movement, and sound. He walked trails, observing textures, shapes, and rhythms. He allowed curiosity, presence, and awareness to guide each step. He felt alive and connected. Trips to town became exercises in mindfulness, connection, and observation. He spoke, listened, smiled, and noticed subtle patterns. He allowed small gestures, warmth, curiosity, and interaction to flow. He felt belonging and presence in these encounters. Days flowed with work, reflection, observation, and gentle interaction, he guided cattle, mended fences, tended water, and observed patterns. He moved with attention and care, allowing mindfulness, presence, and awareness to shape all actions he reflected on. Past caution, solitude, and trust, he accepted them as lessons that shaped careful awareness. He practiced opening to connection, reflection, and empathy. He allowed life to unfold slowly, gently, and fully. He noticed small moments, gestures, and patterns. In town and on the land he spoke, listened, smiled, and observed. He allowed awareness, curiosity, warmth, and connection to grow naturally. He felt alive, present, and grounded. Evenings were spent reflecting, observing, and feeling. He watched stars fire. In the movement of wind, he allowed gratitude, hope, and warmth to settle. He reflected on life, connection, trust, and presence. He felt prepared for the possibilities of tomorrow. He moved through days with work, observation, reflection, and gentle connection. He guided cattle, mended fences, tended water, and observed surroundings. He noticed patterns, gestures, sounds, and movements. He practiced awareness, patience, mindfulness, and presence. He allowed life to unfold gently, gradually, and fully. The smile and memory of interactions continued to guide awareness, reflection, patience, and gentle courage. He allowed small moments, encounters, gestures, and experiences to shape his growth. He felt alive, aware, present, and connected in ordinary life. He explored new areas, observed movement patterns, sounds, and growth. He walked the land, noticing detail, texture, and rhythm. He allowed curiosity, presence, mindfulness, and awareness to guide each step. He felt connected to the land and life around him. Trips to town became opportunities for gentle interaction, observation, and presence. He spoke, listened, smiled, and noticed subtle shifts. He allowed empathy, curiosity, warmth, and trust to grow. He felt alive, present, and connected. In interaction, work continued. With focus, care, reflection, and presence, he guided cattle, mended fences, tended water, and observed patterns, movements, and sounds. He allowed awareness, patience, mindfulness, and connection to guide action. Evenings were spent observing, reflecting, and feeling. He watched stars, fire, wind, and the subtle movement of life. He allowed gratitude, hope, curiosity, warmth, and presence to settle. He reflected on trust, connection, and possibility. He felt complete in quiet awareness and gentle growth. He continued to move through days and nights with presence, awareness, reflection, and gentle connection. He allowed life to unfold with mindfulness, patience, and courage. He observed patterns, movements, gestures, and sounds. He allowed curiosity, warmth, empathy, and connection to growth. A smile that began this journey remained a gentle reminder of openness, courage, and possibility. He allowed it to guide awareness, observation, reflection, and gentle growth. He carried it through work, interaction, observation, and quiet moments. He moved through the land, town, and life with mindfulness, presence, awareness, and reflection. He guided cattle, mended fences, tended water, and observed patterns, gestures, and sounds. He allowed connection, curiosity, warmth, empathy, and awareness to shape each moment. Of evenings were spent reflecting, observing, feeling, and noticing subtle patterns. He allowed gratitude, hope, warmth, curiosity, patience, and presence to guide thought, feeling, and awareness. He felt alive, connected, aware, and complete. He walked the land, noticed small movements, gestures, sounds, and patterns. He explored new areas, observed textures, rhythms, and shapes. He allowed curiosity, awareness, mindfulness, presence, and connection to guide each step. He felt connected to life and the world around him. Trips to town were occasions for observation, interaction, reflection, and presence. He spoke, listened, smiled, and noticed gestures, patterns, shifts, and warmth. He allowed empathy, connection, curiosity, and trust to grow. He felt grounded, present, and alive. Days flowed with work, reflection, observation, and connection. He guided cattle, mended fences, tended water, and observed the land. He moved with mindfulness, presence, patience, awareness, and careful attention. He allowed life to unfold gently, fully and meaningfully.